Good afternoon, everyone. How's everybody doing today? Come on, how is everybody doing today? Good. Okay, before I get started, because I was asked to galvanize the crowd a bit, I want you to look at the person that you're sitting next to, and I want you to give them the best encouragements that they've received this week. All right, now think about it. All right, don't just throw random encouragements. Ready? All right, give them great encouragement. Tell them something amazing about themselves. You're like, I am not going to say anything at all. Okay, there we go. I see some people having some conversations, and I see some people going, okay, I'm just going to mumble something at this point. Today, I'm going to be talking about tapping into the massive potential in our communities. I'm going to be talking about the thousands of immigrants and the thousands of diverse people that are in our communities and the greatness that can come out of that if we can all break through those boundaries, have some great conversations, and work together towards a common goal. What do you see when you look at this picture? For some people, they see chaos. They see a lot of confusion. But what do I see? I see great opportunity. I see massive potential. I see people coming from all across the world with great talent, great education, great experience, great exposure, and bringing those things and bringing all of those skill sets here into our communities. Let's quickly talk about Canada. Let's quickly talk about why this matters. And let's look at some numbers. Over the past 5 years, Canada has welcomed 1.5 million immigrants, mostly under the economic category. We were set to welcome 1.2 newcomers between 2021 and 2023. In 2022 alone, Canada welcomed 405,000 newcomers. And not only that, in 2025, we're projecting to welcome 500,000 new immigrants. I'm one of those immigrants. And each year, that number is supposed to grow on a consistent basis as well. But earlier on, it talked about something around the economic category. What exactly is this economic category? Well, let's learn more about that. Economic category accounts for 58% of all admissions into Canada back in 2019, and this is projected to grow to 60% by 2025. And what exactly is this? It's based on a points-based system where based on your education and different criteria, you earn a certain amount of points, and when you reach a threshold, you're qualified to come into Canada. And what does that look like? You have to have a certain amount of money. I've spoken to a lot of immigration consultants and lawyers, and the number roughly around $20,000 is something that makes you look good when you're putting your application process in. You have to have good health. If you don't have good health, Canada is not welcoming you. You have to be proficient in English or French. So you have to take a test to be able to pass and show that you can do these things. You cannot have a criminal record. And most importantly, if you have a master's or a PhD, you can earn more points to bring you in. Why am I sharing these numbers with you? A lot of the individuals that are coming in through the economic category are the best of the best in their countries. You have former CEOs, former VPs, former directors that are coming into our communities that are probably living close to you or working with you that have all this potential that could be brought to the table. But a lot of these individuals are facing several challenges as well. And what are some of these challenges that they're facing? Let's look through some numbers. Starting with international students at this point, there was an article in pressprogress.ca that talked about almost 1 to 4, on average rather, 1 to 4 bodies are being shipped back home on a monthly basis because international students are committing suicide. They're struggling, they're having a hard time in Canada, they're not settling in well, they're not finding mentors, they're not finding connections, and it's leading to them losing their lives. 31% of recent immigrants were spending over 30% of their income on shelter costs in comparison to only 18% of the general population. And why is that happening? Because they're underemployed, because they're not making enough money. Another stat from Windmill Microlending shares that 41% of immigrants are facing stress or are feeling very, very stressed at the workplace. So if these people can bring all this exposure and education and potential to the workplace or to our communities, and they're being held back because of one challenge or another, we are all not going to get the benefits that they can bring to the table. I want to quickly talk about the 3 phases of an immigrant journey. I went through these phases, and many times when I speak to new immigrants that have come in, they're either in this phase or they've gone through the phase. And what are those 3 phases? The first one is the survival phase. On average, within the first 2 years of you arriving in Canada, you first go through your honeymoon phase. You're excited. You go to Niagara Falls. You go get to see the CN Tower. You do all those wonderful, beautiful things that all Canadians love to do. But then at some point, you start to realize that I've applied for 200 jobs and I've not received a call back. Or I've applied for these jobs, but I keep hearing that I'm overqualified. Even though we set a high standard to bring people in, but then we tell them we're overqualified to come into the organization. So these people start to question themselves. They start to question their credentials. They start to wonder what is going on. Their savings are depleted. Remember, they're new in the country, so they don't have the support system that we have. So suddenly what happens, or who do you speak to when you're going through a challenge? So a lot of these individuals start to struggle. In fact, I remember an immigrant telling me, why am I even here? Like, why did I make this decision? Did I make a big mistake? I sold land. I sold everything. I'm moving here. Now I'm questioning everything. That's the survival phase. The development phase is individuals are now in the system. They found a way to find a job, and they're working within the organization. But they realized, hey, I went through all of these things just to get in. I need to ensure that I stay in. What happens when you've applied for hundreds of jobs and you finally get something? You become extremely cautious. You're not bringing all to the table. You're trying to ensure that you keep yourself safe so you don't lose your job. Some people start to go to school in the evenings as well. So what happens? They're working in the daytime. They're going to school in the evening so that they can have a Canadian credential attached to their resume. So you will notice a lot of immigrants at this point are exhausted. They're tired. They're trying to balance so many things. Once again, you're not receiving all that they bring to the table because they're completely stretched in so many different directions. Because they're trying to expedite their journey, something that you've taken years to do, they're trying to do it in a few years. And then lastly, the thriving phase. And from what I've noticed in the conversations that I've had, this usually happens by year 4 and beyond that as well. This individual is back in a good place where they're making good money. Maybe they've started their own business. They're doing well financially. It is at this point they start to think about giving back to the community. It's at this point when they start to volunteer in the community. It's at this point when they start to join non-for-profits and doing other things to be able to serve in the community. So my challenge for all of us and my goal is to get us to the point where we can help each immigrant and diverse members of your community to move from surviving into thriving as quick as possible, because that's when you, your organization, your community gets the most value. But what happens is because we leave people alone, they seem to get stuck within that survival and development phase, and they don't truly get to that thriving phase at the end of the day. I want to quickly talk about the North Star. We're talking about breaking boundaries today. We're talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion and the benefits of it, how much value it can add in our communities. And the question that you probably are asking, and many people ask me when I have conversations with them, is what is the benefit of all this for us, Ayo? Why should we be doing this? Well, I like to share a business case and some studies with them. Starting out with McKinsey. McKinsey did a study of over 1,000 companies in a dozen countries, and they were asking the question, what is the benefit of diversity in our organizations? And I like to tie it to communities as well. And what they discovered is companies in the top quartile that had more ethnic and cultural diversity outperformed those in the bottom fourth quartile by 36% in profitability. Boston Consulting Group did their study as well in 2018 in 1,000 companies as well in 8 different countries. And they discovered that companies with more diverse management teams have 19% higher revenue due to innovation. So may I submit to you today that bringing those individuals in and building inclusive environments where each of those individuals feel like they belong and they can add great value in your organization or in your community, there are great benefits to it. We just have to ensure we go beyond just bringing them, but we're actually creating that place where they can feel like they belong. So there are 6 challenges that I want to give us today. Okay? Number 1 is meet them. Number 2 is know them. Number 3, share with them. Number 4, learn from them. Number 5, support them. And lastly, number 6, the most important, I would say, sponsor them. Let's run through this as quickly as possible. The first one, meet them. Okay, Ayo, you're talking about these great things, but where do I find these diverse people? I see some in the room today. And I'm sure when we go to our churches, when we go to our different community centers and different areas, they are there. But still, I don't know where to find them, where I have some places where you can go to find these individuals. There is Access Employment. They have thousands and thousands of new immigrants that are within their communities. YMCA has a mentorship program where new immigrants that are coming in are finding mentors just like yourself that they can learn from, learn about Canada, and things that could be shared with them. When I arrived 7 years ago, I was blessed to have 3 different mentors through the YMCA program that really helped me through this process. Eventually, I became a mentor. I started as a mentee, then I became a mentor in that program as well. There's Upcity.com. It has thousands and thousands of Black tech talents, including immigrant talents right here in Canada. Immigrant Networks has thousands and thousands of immigrants that are recently arriving that are looking for mentors just like you. And lastly, BMG Solutions as well. Same thing. These are great places that you can go to find these individuals so that you can support them. And let's move over to number 2, know them. You cannot just meet them, but you must know them. You must have an opportunity to be able to build that relationship and connect with these individuals. When trust goes up, walls come down. So how can we know these individuals? I love this story about Sid Marshall, the CEO of NBA's Dallas Mavericks. When she first joined the organization, she made a commitment to meet every member of the organization within 90 days. And she just asked a simple question. Tell me your life story. Would love to learn more about you. Well, Ayo, that is not possible. I know the CEO of a bank who made a commitment once a week to meet a new individual that works in that organization. And he had a series of questions that he would ask as well. Well, Ayo, okay, what questions do I ask? Well, here's what I say. If you scan that on or take a picture of that, you can go back later on. There are about 20 questions that I've created and put together in a document on page 3. Gives you an opportunity to be able to have great conversations with people. You can have virtual coffee with people. You can sit and grab lunch. While they're eating their meals, you can eat yours and you can learn about one another. There's so many great things that we can do to build connections with people in our communities. But remember, it starts with the connection. You got to meet them first, but then you got to know them so you can build that trust. After that, the next thing that we can do is share with them. What do I mean by sharing with them? People are coming in, but they don't know much about Canada. You have a great opportunity to share resources with them, share ideas. People are not even familiar possibly with the community centers and all the different things that you consider regular knowledge because you've lived within the system. But someone coming into the system, it's an opportunity for them to learn from you. What are some ideas, resources, advice, and tips? Hey, where do you get great deals in the community? And how about this, grandma's cookie recipe? You could share that with them as well. But it's a great opportunity to build relationships, but more importantly, it's a great opportunity for you to say, hey, these are some of the things you can do in your resume to get that job. Or these are some of the things you can do in your organization to be able to get that director or that VP role. Those tips can make a world of difference when we start to break beyond those boundaries. Moving over to number 4 is learn from them. You have so many people coming in with great education, great exposure. There's a great friend of mine who was a COO of a construction company back in Qatar, and they built a lot of stadiums and so many massive construction sites. We can learn from them. There are great people from the Igbo tribe in Nigeria who in the 70s, after a civil war, each individual was given 20 pounds to survive. Imagine after a war, all you lost everything, and you got 20 pounds to survive. But somehow, some way, over 30 years, this community have been able to take themselves from just 20 pounds to owning businesses, to becoming leaders in organizations, and really becoming great influence all across the world. Those individuals are living in your community, and we can learn from them. And let's move over to number 5, which is support them. This is when we need to start helping them. Okay? Why is that important? IRCC tells us, this was back in 2012, and I believe the number is probably worse now. It says 29% of immigrants reported having emotional problems and 16% reported high levels of stress after immigrating to Canada. People struggle when they come in and they don't have that support system. Yes, when you say, how are you doing? Usually they will say they're fine and they walk away. But when you build that relationship and that connection with them, you start hearing about all the challenges that they're going through, that they're dealing with. So it's really crucial and important that we're able to help to support people through the process. Whether that is every now and then you bring a meal for them, whether it's every now and then you help drive them to that community center or to that place where they need to get the help and support they need, or sitting with them and helping them prepare for that job interview so that, hey, this is what you should say and this is how you should say it here in Canada, just to be able to help them separate themselves from everyone else. Supporting is so crucial. Your support through tough times can be a breath of fresh air. And then lastly, sponsoring them. Why is this important? Let me first define what sponsoring is. Sponsoring is open the doors for people. Sponsoring is speaking for people in a room where they're not in. Many times immigrants are over-mentored and under-sponsored. We're willing to sit with them and do the basics, but when it comes to speaking on their behalf in the workplace and saying, this is a great person that should come join our organization, we don't want to do that. The reason I'm able to stand up on stage, the reason why I'm a city councilor, the reason why I've been able to become the VP of Inclusive Leadership at Eagles Flights is because behind closed doors, there were individuals that were willing to stand up and speak on my behalf and say, this is someone that we want in our organization. Think about this number. Only 1/4 of newcomers in Ontario work in fields in which they were previously employed. So that means 3/4 are now working in the fields that they were previously employed. And there is more data that tells us that people are underemployed. In other words, they maybe came in at a VP or director role or have that education, and they're not even at that level. They're probably at the entry level. So there are times when we need to open the doors for them. So once again, here's the picture. What do you see? Do you see confusion? Do you see chaos? Or do you see an opportunity? Do you see potential? Do you see future leaders in your community? Do you see future mayors that can move your city to that next level? Do you see a city councilor just like myself or VP in your organization that can bring in revenue and add great value within the organization? I hope you see the latter. Thank you very much. Have a great day.